Hello, hello. We will get started in just a moment. Here is the meeting minutes, link to the meeting minutes. So anyone that has a topic, toss it on in. We're teeing up the agenda right now. Especially if you have anything to complain about, like this is the time. Let's get it sort of all the complaints out in 2020, start fresh next year. So much note taking. Okay.
Morning, people.
Morning, morning, Drew. All right, all right. Good morning, good evening. Well, it's December 16th. Meshery development call. Let's get rolling. Okay, there's the link to the meeting minutes. Hey, welcome, Husseina. I'm curious, I forget, can you see the past history of chat in Zoom?
No.
No, okay. I'll send a link to the meeting minutes in there. There's a couple of us that have just joined. And let's start. Real briefly, is anyone on the call for the first time, or anyone that hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves on this call before? Some of you might have introduced on other calls, but it's good to do it on the different calls because not different people come to different ones. So so I guess, yeah, I think everybody's been, for the most part, introduced. And those that might not have been, a few of you are going to talk about your work today. So you will be. All right. I think we've got a decent agenda lined up. If anyone has any topics, please put them in. Actually, Husseina is here, which means we need to talk about EKS a little bit. And I'm hoping that Markin will join as well. Husseina, would you mind messaging Markin in Slack just to ask him if he might be able to join? He had some great suggestions, and for my part, I ran out of time to follow up on them.
Surely, I'll just message.
Okay, thanks. By the way, just Husseina, as you go to do that, this is a good note for everyone. I don't know if everyone's aware, but there's some convenience links to each of the meetings, like to each of the Zooms. And they're under like meet.layer5.io. So in this case, it's meet.layer5.io Meshery. And if you can't remember them, if you just go to meet.layer5.io, it will it'll take you to this table, which is kind of nice because then you can just get to whatever meeting you're trying to get to. So just FYI. All right. First topic up, actually, Maxime.
Yeah. Hi.
Hey, we've so Abhishek has just joined, and I think we can. Do you want? Let's talk about provisioning Istio.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about your item. Do you want to take us through the issue that you recently bumped into?
Yeah. Do you need me to share my screen or something?
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. I'm going to. So, so can you see my screen?
You can.
Okay. Um, yeah. So I'm right here in the dashboard, and so everything is okay. The mini cube is I can ping everything, and I'm actually following the workshop to set up Istio. And for example, first of all, I don't even have the same menu as shown into the tutorial. Like when I click on the plus, I don't have the same options. So I can still ping the Istio adapters, but if I try to do any action regarding the adapters, there's I've got some timeout happening. So after a few seconds, we will see a notification telling me that the system is unable to connect. If I remember, um, yeah, yeah, I got this.
And if you click on it, that's a good human readable message. That's good. And then we get some additional details. Unfortunately, we don't get an error code, which would be really nice to look up, like specifically a Meshery specific error code that then tells you what you should probably do to fix it. But in this case, it looks like your your Kubernetes is at that IP address, and or it seems like it's probably having a little bit of a challenge talking to Kubernetes. Error with this.
But if I can ping, because uh, I can ping everything, but so I'm supposed to connect to.
And you're running Minikube?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, it says it right in front of my face. Um, I wonder if it isn't the Meshery adapter that's having a challenge speaking to Minikube, as opposed like that specific.
Doesn't seem to be just Istio, because I think if I try to run any action from any adapter, I think I will have exactly the same.
Yeah,
Why?
which actually, oh, good. Markin is on, which so I'm excited about that because Markin. I don't mean to. This is very relevant to your discussion, Maxime. Um, so Markin, I wanted to apologize. Actually, we had a conversation like really early in my morning, and I never got back to finish our conversation. So I just wanted to apologize. But glad that Marquine is here because I think he's about to answer your question or try to point out, I think the same thing that I was going to point out, which is that my guess is that your Meshery server container has been networked to be able to speak to Cube API, while the other 7 or 8 containers, each of your adapter containers, they may not be networked to be able to speak to Cube API. And Martin has put in a command in the Zoom chat that might be what you need.
Okay.
And so the command that he's giving there is basically saying that each individual Meshery container, each of the adapters
Yeah.
need to be individually connected to the Kubernetes network.
Okay. And where shall I put this command?
In your terminal, in your not PowerShell, I guess, but your PowerShell.
So here.
Yeah, it's capable of running Bash here, I think. Cool. I think it did it for all of them except for Meshery Server, because Meshery Server was already there. So yeah, if you want to give that operation a try again to provision Istio. Oh, I'm sorry, in the Meshery UI.
So here.
Yeah, if you would. Heck, give console a try just to make Michael happy.
Should I go back to the console again?
Yeah, either one. I'm just playing around. Yeah, whichever one you want to try to provision. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I confused you with the terms console and terminal. Yeah, Maxime, if you would go back to Meshery UI, go to the Istio adapter and try to provision Istio.
So.
Perfect. Yeah, if you would. And so right now, the 2 notifications that we have, those are the 2 old notifications, I'm assuming. Cool.
I will have a new one. Yeah. Okay. It seems to work now. I
don't know. I mean, here's my issue with this is that Marquine was the MVP of our last Meshery dev call, and we can't we can't have him being the MVP 2 calls in a row, 2 weeks in a row. So we need to move on.
But I don't. So yeah, this command just did the trick. Yeah. If I, for example, keep going with this, I should be able to continue with the tutorial.
Yeah, and the same thing. And now, when you try to provision the console service mesh, it should work as well. Nice. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. And then one last thing that Markin was asking to potentially do, just I think for additional info, is like when you're in, and you might have done this before, but when you're in your terminal, your PowerShell terminal, if you run, I think you did, but if you do it now that you're successful, if you run Meshery CTL system logs, things should look. This is really like some of this stuff looks like issues, and some of it's just debug.
It's just it's not hero. It's just debugs. But I'm looking for the Meshery Istio 1.
And it should be, if you go to the very bottom, I suspect it's yeah. yeah, if you would like humor me, if you would, if you drag your scroll bar all the way to the bottom, and if you go back up just to, huh, cancel. Tokenize. I don't know. Anyway, you're good to continue with the
with the STO.
work. Yeah, and should be now with all of them. So good. There is a follow up to this topic, this mini cube topic. So, but Maxime, thanks for letting us walk through this. This is
Yeah, but I have to thank Marcin to help me out with.
yeah, I know. I'm kind of sick of hearing his name already. It's no, I know. I
Yeah,
know,
that's
guys.
just highly, but I'm just wondering if we shouldn't change just anything during startup of Meshery or something else, just to do this connecting in the background under the hood, just because so many users are just trying to overcome, yes, and this is overwhelming them. So the one of the idea is just to add it to the Meshery CTL system start, for example. Yes, I don't know if this is the best, but this is one of the possibility, because this connection is needed every time after every Meshery startup. Yes, if you stop the Meshery, start it again, the connection to the Minikube network bridge will be required once again, because the Meshery container, Docker container will lose this connection. Yes, so this is needed after each start. So I think connecting to the Meshery CTL system start, just adding this one command to this, and the same issue as in with Minikube is with kind. Yes, if you install the kind, and do not install the Meshery via Helm, but via Docker, you will just get exactly the same issue. Yes, the Docker desktop is just solving this, because I think it's connecting the container to the host or something like this. But with the kind, Minikube, whatever, yes, the real Kubernetes, that it will be always the same issue without connecting.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it's which is why both in the on principle of what you're saying is, hey, like this is a fairly significant hindrance to in a number of use cases, and it like very clearly needs to be addressed. It's not only needs to be addressed just from a like for any project, but particularly for this project, we want to hopefully as a design principle and something of a point of pride for the project is to make sure that it's brings a great user experience, just makes things, has the nice default assumptions, and helps. Part of the reason that people are going to use it is because networking is confusing and hard, and if we're not helping overcome that, then we're not really helping solve the problem in general that people are having. So um, I don't, off the top of my head, I think my from my perspective, it's yes, and then the particulars, and it's yes, like it's not a one time, or the particular approach that we might take is a recurrent, like it's a recurring fix that kind of needs to happen, like you were saying, sort of on start, at which like it bugs me. Um, it, it I want to try to reframe the problem somehow, because like being because it actually, to your point, you'd said like, hey, we got the Minikube issue, we got a kind issue. There's probably a couple of other environments we have issues. There's another one where when people want to run a performance test and they want to give Meshery the endpoint, like the URL to one of their services. Well, sometimes those services are people want to give them that service by name or by IP address, like Kubernetes IP address. And Meshery, since it's in its own private IP address range network, it doesn't, that's another example of where it doesn't know how to talk or how to reach this other network, even if it's not Minikube or Kind and so it'd be nice if, to step away and come back with, well, and I don't have a good suggestion. I'm gonna toss out some and then they're not going to be great. And it's going to be something like, well, is there an overlay networking that we want to do or host-based networking? Or is there like, I think, when someone deploys Meshery as a Kubernetes app inside the cluster, like a lot of this goes away. Okay. Does that mean we don't want to support Docker? No, very much so. Like Meshery CTL only allows you to deploy to Docker today. Tomorrow, it should be supporting Kubernetes. Like we should be doing that fairly quickly. But the problem will persist. And so one of the things I think that would, even if the only approach is, look, the only thing that we can figure out is like, it's best for Meshery as an app to sit in a bridge network. And so and the only thing to do is like individually connect these containers, and you've got to do it every single time you start. If that's the only, then one of the things we may want to facilitate with Meshery CTL is to make it a little more intelligent, to let it either to unintelligently, like in a greedy way, connect Meshery's bridge network to other networks that look interesting, ones that are called Minikube, ones that are called Kind, or is to make Meshery CTL a little more intelligent and have it understand more about the environment, like what type of Minikube is there, what the.
Okay, but
so,
Maxim, if you just make one comment.
Yeah.
In shell terminal, please exec. This is it doesn't hurt your system as it's on display in the shell terminal. Okay, so I think the quite easy idea is to connect Meshery containers to each bridge network on the hosts. So we can filter via driver type. If it's bridge, connect to all name of this bridge, and it will. This is the Greavy approach, yes. So this is a very simple idea, yes, and it will work. Such approach which will work with Kind, with Minikube, with some, because Minikube, it's also the network name. This is the default name on the cluster. The Kind will be default on the Kind cluster. If anyone will name the cluster other, the network name can be also changed. So if we filter via the driver type via bridge and connect to the name corresponding to this bridge, it will always work. This is not the best solution for sure, but it's easy. It's easy. It's so this is some idea how can we solve. The most probably they are better, yes, but this is quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For my part, I don't have a more intelligent. I don't have a better thing to suggest. Do you, Markin? Do you know actually? Markin, can you say your first name again, real quick? It's not Marcin. It's.
Okay, you can say Martin. It's
Martin.
exactly the same. It's exactly the same with other languages. Yes, there just the name is coming from the Mars, the god of war. Yes, in ancient religions. So, I'm from Warsaw, the city which saw war. The name is from related. It's strange, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. It's enough, yeah.
So I don't have a better suggest. Yeah, it would be nice to brainstorm a little bit. There's a document that is a perfect place to sort of outline these thoughts, even if we just arrive at the exact same solution that you're just suggesting, but it's in part just to say, here's why these other things won't work, and to kind of have that on paper. I'll put the link in the meeting minutes and chat, and I'll say, well, Maxime, thank you for this. I think we're ready to Martin, if we can write into that other document some of those ideas, I think we're good to go to the next topic, probably.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. All right. We got this is the other doc, by the way. This one's probably one of our earlier docs. I think even in the design principles, it should probably talk about, facilitating getting Meshery running faster, making sure that our user experiences are we have consistent, that they're familiar. So we should, seek to be inspired by other popular CLIs in the space, kubectl and Docker, and but this talks about why we use Docker Compose and other things. So this is a good doc to call out how to overcome, okay. So put, so next up, Sudan. Do you want to talk about, introduce people to some of the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. The work I have been doing, assigned like to get the current release notes. To say the current, we don't have a particular document. The release notes are being updated manually in the Meshery docs. So we wanted for each version release, the release to have a particular structure of what are the what are the features being released, the bug fixes and the maintenance particularly. So I have been working to create for each release. I have been working to create a change log that will create a file that under Meshery docs, so it will be automatically updated. Currently in progress.
Nice, and very good. I figured we could talk about the approach just a little, because I think there's two that you can basically choose from. I think you'll arrive at the same place, and whichever one is maybe easier. To repeat the problem statement for everyone here, and that's to say that Kush Trivedi has been working on continuous integration for the projects for quite some long time, and part of each of the 40-something repositories that are here, they, for the most part, follow a fairly similar set of GitHub actions of workflows. Anyone that wants to come to understand those, it's just in any of the repos, you go to .github and you'll see a couple of workflows, both under this folder, and basically everything under here is of interest. One of those things that's ubiquitous for all of our repositories is the use of a bot called Release Drafter, and every time that a PR merges, this Release Drafter bot kicks up, and it identifies, it looks at the type of issue that was just resolved, the type of merge that was just done, it labels it, and it drafts out what would ultimately be release notes. So it's called Release Drafter. So if I were to cruise over to the releases for Meshery, there's the current release that's public is 04.27, but there's been PRs that have merged since in the last 6 days. So these PRs have merged, and that Release Drafter bot is just ongoing, adding, building up the release notes, the change log. And then a step that's perpetually plagued us is the lack of automation between these change notes and what's publicly published in this Jekyll Meshery doc site. We're perpetually behind on publishing the notes because it's just one of those steps that gets forgotten about. So what's being worked on here is the automation of that, and kind of two ways that you might consider to chew this off, Siddhan, which is use of either a Jekyll data file or a Jekyll collection. And you might be familiar with these concepts already, but I'll touch on them briefly in case you aren't, and for the benefit of others. Are you familiar with both of those concepts?
Yeah, I have a site hosted using Jackal, so with the collections.
Okay. And so, given that you're familiar, then do you want to talk about your approach to automating this? Like, how are you going to do it?
Yeah, like currently I'm using the NumPy npm package for called Grin.
Okay.
Yeah, so it currently using the release drafter. There is no option to create a file. So Grin automatically has something called if you can see, we can generate the change log as we want. We can point out to a template as a release drafter.
Okay.
So we can generate a.
Let me. Sorry to interrupt. Let me change the. Ask on you if I can, which is to say, the release drafter that we're using now. Ideally, we want to try to continue to use it to generate the notes. And is that your approach, or are you switching that out with something else?
No, I'm not going to switch that. I'm this is only for getting the change log to get the pull request. Like whatever the release drafter records, the pull request that's been merged will be like to get the doc. Yeah, like create a AMD file. I'm currently not changing anything in. I have added few things like. I have not changed any functions of the release drafter.
Okay.
The bottom file shows the template that's been used for Grin.
Okay. Yeah, it's confusing to me. The reason I think that is because it looks like we're republishing or re-identifying. I guess my thought was that, and it doesn't have to be this way. It's just that this. I'll explain why I'm confused. Which is, if release drafter is identifying the different types of PRs and formatting the release notes, that upon release, like when we make a tagged release, that it would be at that point some automation, we would need to just capture those release notes and save them, persist them to a markdown file. Yeah. And so, but of what I see here, it looked like you were kind of redoing what release drafter does, and so, but that's probably me just being confused.
Yeah, like I didn't want to repeat the same structure here, but I was trying to find out a way that we can capture the what's been drafted in a release drafter. So the same approach you were saying, like you were meaning to, and I couldn't find a way that to capture it and pass it to a file, like create a MD file. So I contacted Kush, and he just pointed out to me to the Grin. But we can use the Grin to release have a release drafter also.
Okay, so in addition, so we would be generating two change logs, two release notes, two sets of different release notes, right? using two different tools. I can't imagine that there isn't a utility that can that, you know, while we're doing a release and Release Drafter is generating those notes, that it can't, in that same workflow, that we can't pass along those release notes to a different job, you know, to a different step, and have something else other than the Release Drafter bot persist that to a file. Seems weird. Does that make sense? I think what I'm trying to say is like, hey, I wonder if we can avoid having to generate the release notes twice using two different tools that might produce slightly different sets of.
I think you got me wrong. Like, we are not generating two release notes. Like, currently it generates only the change log here.
Okay.
But it has the functionality to generate a release draft also, release note also. It the user generates or creates a changelog file that's like what we have in the current release notes. Like, if we have a current release note, it gets it and it creates a changelog. Like, if I can share the.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was using changelog and release notes synonymously. So that's probably part of the confusion.
Sorry, I couldn't find the link to the API I'm using, action I'm using.
But okay, maybe maybe we'll come back. I think I have a better understanding as to what you're saying. If we can avoid generating the release note, what Release Drafter creates, it would just be ideal if we can take that and persist it to file. But and it sounds like that's what you're more or less trying to do, and so
yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, and that you would kind of change up the way that the like today this page is just one long page, but that tomorrow you'd create this such that there's each individual release is its own markdown file, and you'd basically have a collection, and you'd sort of iterate through, and the net result is probably that there's still just one really long page, but it's actually behind the scenes broken into a bunch of individual markdown files. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Anybody have any comments on that or feedback for? So, anyone worked with this with Gren before? Well, look at that. Everybody's going to learn on the call then. Nice. Okay. Well, Sudan, anything else to talk about here? It sounds like you're on the right path.
Yeah, like due to some academic issue, assignments have been stuck. The progress has been halted, so probably I'll complete it this week. Yeah.
Nice. Good. Well, not to ease off all the pressure, but the issue that, and by the way, you might want to list the issue that you're fixing, the issue number here. But when you look at it, that issue was created 14 months ago or something. So we've been waiting for 14 months. We can wait a few more weeks. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for doing that. That's great. All right. Another quick topic. Kush had landed a Meshery CTL feature called channel. Has anybody tried it? Anybody tried this command? And another question, can anyone tell me what this command should do, what you would expect that it does? I'm going to share it. But part of what we're trying, so there's this new command has come forth. Part of what we're trying to figure out is if we've got the right user experience. So let's see if we do. Anyone want to take a guess as to what they think Meshery CTL system channel does? Okay. All right. Well, so I pressed enter. Please subscribe to either the stable or edge release channel. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, it switches between edge and latest. Very good. Beneath, very good. Okay, good. So at least a few of you are interpreting the command in the right way. Like we're not far off. Like it's, you know, in terms of its naming, just it's not far off from what it is supposed to do. So yep, that's right. It's supposed to help people switch between the two different release channels that we have. Okay, so if you just do that, it says, well, hey, look, you've got to choose one, is what the response is. Okay. So in my mind, and by the way, Anirudh or anyone, if anyone else doesn't pick this up, then Anirudh, you're the man in this case. You're the engineer. Is Anirudh on? He is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one item for me, just like, and I think it's important for us to walk through this because it's it helps us as a community grow, because so that others can bring forth a consistent experience. What we would do is, this is a good message. We should probably also give them the literal usage, like usage, and give them an example of what they would need to put. Since we don't, I'm going to type -H for help. And one thing that we're doing, we're just as a side note, and is that we have this listed twice where the Meshery CTL YAML config is. So side note from the system channel, is anyone willing to take this on to go remove this duplicative listing? Anybody? Is anybody, if someone doesn't want sign up, I'm gonna sign someone up. Husseina? I wonder, would you mind? Oh, very good. Okay. You were volunteering before I could. Thank you, Husseina. Yeah, we're okay. All right. So then back to the user experience here about system channel help. Okay. So it says, all right, so you've got two flags that you need to use here. You're either going to use dash set or dash switch. That's weird. Like this S kind of matches the set, but this C doesn't match the switch. Okay. It's not the most intuitive. Release channel to be set for Meshery and its adapters. Okay. I don't know. Maybe we would rather just say set the release channel for Meshery and its adapters. But anyway, a little bit of wording. But anyway, okay. So I'm a user. I'm going through this. Release channel to be switch. Release channel to be switched for Meshery and its adapter. Okay, that English is a little off. But we might just start with the verb, like set release channel for, you know, and maybe instead of set, maybe we would say subscribe, because we're kind of subscribing to. Anyway, all right. So I will switch with a C to stable. Successfully setted. Successfully setted channel. Okay, we're gonna have to fix this verb, but and maybe rather than setted, we would say subscribe. And it looks like as we're doing that, we're invoking and we're updating Meshery as well, which makes sense if you're gonna. So by the way, so I'm kind of walking through this for everybody. To one, there's a couple of issues here. Is that if you go to perform an update of Meshery, if you do a Meshery CTL system update, in my environment, Meshery server is not running, which I assume is what's happening here. Like the connection is refused, and so I couldn't, so it's not, or rather, I'm sorry, Docker is not running. That's what's not running. Well, both Meshery server and Docker are both not running. And so we're not doing a good job of reusing existing feature functions. So Husseina had built in a function into Meshery CTL system start that would detect whether or not Docker was running. And if it isn't, it would capture that error, and it would actually ask you if you would like to start Docker. And so we should be reusing as much as possible as we're going through this code, that reusing the same functions so we don't bump into errors like this. But anyway, so food for thought. If you would, a couple of you might want to go try using this command, because actually anyone who's contributing here, and even if you're just a user of Meshery, you're likely going to want to perform this action at some point. At some point, you're going to start with Meshery and get comfortable. You're going to use the stable release channel, and you're going to be using things. And then soon you're going to be wanting to get to things, new features that have yet to go into the stable channel. So you're probably going to want to switch to the edge release. And so this command will be helpful to you. And the user experience might be something for you to comment on. So anyone have feedback on this? It's an excellent command. It probably needs a little fine tuning, but really helpful to quickly switch back and forth. If you're not aware, every time that a pull request is merged into the master branch in the Meshery repo, and actually the same is true for every Meshery adapter as well, all of the adapter repos. Every time a PR is merged, the edge release is updated. An edge release is made available to the world, like a few minutes later after the workflow is done. The stable release or a new stable release is made as and when a human goes over and gives it a release number and pushes out a release. So okay, so I think there's a couple of issues to be raised here. So Husseina, you've got I think one on the and the other, and Husseina, actually, considering that, if you don't mind, there's a second one in here that you might consider, and that's to ensure that we're invoking the same Docker detection.
Yeah, the prerequisite function, right? Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right, and then next, so Anirudh, I know that we're not in a position to demo context, but is this one that you want to talk to people about your design and what you're going to deliver?
I
Or
don't
no?
have as of now, other than the doc which I created. So, even speaking about it, people would not have an idea. So, the that the idea on or the main focus here is to have a switchable context as how you have an kubectl for Kubernetes. We would have context in terms of Meshery, so that would be switching between different Meshery contexts. So the Meshery server could be in any place. It could be GKE. It could be any cluster, but we just need the URL endpoint or the URI complete where the backend is hosted, so you can access that. I mean, it's actually in progress. It would take me another hour to complete the entire command.
Nice. And so the link to this, this document is Meshery CLI commands and documentation. This is the Meshery CTL doc, if you will. It's the design spec for Meshery CTL. And
Yeah.
there's a section at the very bottom that Anirudh wrote up, and it's been reviewed, and he's off executing. So if folks have feedback for him, I think then he's open to it. There is, it'll be a very simple command to start. And yeah, and so Dina has a great question. So we're going to spend the rest of our time on this to talk about this, which I think is really good. It's something that we, like a month ago, I don't know how many, I've talked about this, I don't know how many times, and it's been my fault that we've never written it down. And Anirudh finally has. I think one thing that I think collectively we're trying to define here are two things, two terms. So if you've been a Meshery user, you've gone to the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner in the UI, you go to the settings page. On the settings page, there's an environment tab. The environment tab is where you load up your kube config. If you have to manually load your kube config, that's what you're doing. So Anirudh, through this work, is trying to help sort of construct a couple of terms, a couple of constructs in the Meshery project. One of those is called context, and this would be a Meshery CTL construct. So this command that he's working on is Meshery CTL system context, and it will basically perform the action of tracking the location of Meshery server. It will let you give a name to, if you have multiple Meshery server deployments, it'll let you give a name to those deployments and switch between them. So just like you might do kubectl, just like Anirudh said, just kubectl config set content. It's not going to be the same syntax, but just the same concept. The reason for this, it's not because there's people running 5 different Meshery servers and they need to switch between. That's not a common use case right now. But the reason for this is because if you look through Meshery CTL's code, there's some hard coding in there to this location, localhost. Hard coding, assuming that you're using Meshery CTL in the command line and you've got Meshery server deployed locally. Turns out like half of us are deploying Meshery server, Meshery as an application inside of Kubernetes, and that's not localhost, that's something else. So Anirudh is trying to break us free of that hard coding, bringing forth context. It will track Meshery server location. So later, this will allow us to have a Meshery server construct that we have today. It's a very weak construct. It's called environment. And this will be focused around your Kubernetes cluster. And it will eventually then allow you to switch between which Kubernetes cluster you're trying to administer. And that's actually a very common use case that people have. So Adina had sort of asked the question, I think the first of which hopefully we answered, but the second one is, yeah, okay, right. Adina, does that help? Is that, and clarify? Cool. Okay. Anyone else lost on this? Because I didn't present it very well. Okay.
Lee, so after getting the context, are we switching the context using any other CLI, or how?
Great point. Yeah, on what does it look like to, what does it look like to add a name or, add a new Meshery server location?
You could simply create new context. So I have three particular commands in mind inside context. That's create, delete, and edit. So you can create, delete, or edit any of the contexts that point to separate server endpoints, and that would actually free us from localhost, where actually Meshery CTL is everything hard coded. Yeah, that's the entire part here. So you switching between Meshery CTL context for now, like the initial part is simply switching between URLs where our backend has been hosted.
Anirudh, will you document this a little bit further about where it is that someone would give? I'm assuming that what it would be here is like the name of that context, and then.
So I'll just share my file, which is bit ideal-ish. So I think it's already there on the CLI. So let me just check. Is it not? Is the doc not updated?
I'm not sure if you're using a separate doc, don't use this doc.
Yeah, I just used its introduction to context, right? Yeah. So this is actually a bit different here. So I'll just update the image.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So maybe when you'll message in the Slack channel probably when there's some of these questions are maybe.
This is the structure here. So you have, I guess doc must be updated.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have context, and so there's a YAML file. You have context. Then inside context, you have the different context that you would add or delete. Right. So currently I have local and GK, and yeah, these are just template URLs for now. I didn't. So I'm currently working on it, and once it's done, maybe we can work on taking this further to actually get it integrated with system config, minikube, EKS, and all the different commands that work with different Meshery, right? So this is the initial way on how context is, starting to get implemented. I'm halfway through, so I guess next meeting we might have this. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Well, thanks for walking us through this. When this is a little when this is a little more written out, if you message in the Meshery CTL channel, folks can come give comment. But it's looking good. It's nice and simple to start with. Even simple things like just tracking the location of Meshery server comes with all of the burden of like doing CRUD on that, creating the entry, deleting it, updating the entry. So, yeah. Is the edit that you're thinking of here, this would more or less open up, would do basically VI on the config file?
Not exactly. I was thinking on having having users pass in parameters. Server URL, then after that you could pass in the
Okay.
server URL parameter and the value of the server URL.
Okay. How about okay, very good. I propose that we skip edit for now and just do create delete,
Okay.
because it's just but nice. And this is more, is this a proper example of uh, how you're looking at the syntax now?
You could change the page Meshery URL to URL, but yeah, this is the syntax.
Cool. Nice. Shorter is better.
And so the idea here is also to pass in tokens. So as you said, we need to have authentication simplified, right? So you just need to pass in token path here, and that would automatically save it with the context. So the next time you run the command, it would pick the token from the context location. So you don't have to pass in token to every other command that you execute.
Awesome. Anyone else have comments for Anirudh on that before we wrap up? Cool. Well, hopefully this will do not only break us free from some hard coding, but also maybe break us free of one of the things that we were recently talking about. The subject of conversation was like the horse before the cart issue with having to go out and retrieve a token and pulling it back. And I think the conversation that we were all having was sort of headed toward questioning the convenience, like questioning whether or not that prior approach should continue forth. So this is going to help overcome part of that.
Yeah. This create context would require auth.json as a prerequisite, and it would be stored in the context, and the context would be reused again, right?
I didn't get the question. I thought Lee was answering.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'll answer real quick. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't. Yep, that's right. It doesn't. This first step doesn't circumvent some of the awkwardness of having to go over, download the token, save it somewhere. There's further steps on that. Ultimately, Husseina, actually, I think the step that we ultimately want to get to with is to probably get away from tokens and get into, well, I guess it would still be a token, but we might use OAuth as given that it's a long conversation because there's the local provider, there's remote providers. Yes, is the short answer to what you'd say. How you described it, yes, is how it would work short term.
Oh, sure.
So very good. Wow, we're 5 over. Thanks everybody for demoing and sharing today. It was very nice. Good to see you all. Martin, I don't know. I desperately tried to not have you receive the MVP award again this time, because I just anyway. Thanks for letting me harass all of you guys. It's fun. So in a week from now, what's 16 plus 7? We're close to Christmas at that point. We'll still meet. I'll still be here if anybody else shows up. We'll still be meeting next week on Wednesday, but on Friday, that's Christmas, and so we've gone ahead and canceled the community meeting next Friday, 10 days from now. So other than that, we're on. So all right, that's it. Okay. Yeah. See everybody in Slack. We'll see you on Friday.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks.
See you. Thanks.
Guys.
Cheers.
See you, everyone.